everybody. So I used to listen to that song on repeat, like over and over. When Josh was like, it all fades into God, I was like, oh yes, please. All the ways we seem to fail. It's been very alive for me this week. Just all the ways that it just feels like so much has broken and failed. And how do we hold that? How do we hold that? So we've been working on this 4-part series, right? We started off with abundant living, and the foundation, I really believe, of being able to stand in something is being able to understand that there is always something more, right? There's always something more. And if we can really root ourselves in that principle of abundance, then we're creating a foundation from which we can begin to step into really deeper spiritual practice. Abundance consciousness is just the start. Can you feel that? A lot of people think that's where you end. It's the start. And then last week we talked about intentional living, right? How do you live with intention? How do you actually bring your capacity to show up to everything? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But I wanted to talk about what we're doing this week, which is conscious living. And everything builds on itself. And we can look at conscious living in a number of ways, and we are going to look at it from a place of consciousness. But there's also just the real question, right? Are you conscious? Are you paying attention? And it's hard to pay attention right now. It's hard to pay attention when we see pain and loss and suffering and injustice and inequality and othering. It's hard to pay attention. I like to retreat, and I retreat into my little Threads bubble where like everybody agrees with me. And then I have to come out again. I can't stay there. Right? I can't stay there. I have to come out again, and I have to be present to different perspectives and different understandings and different ways of being in the world. So when we talk about consciousness, there's lots of definitions for consciousness out there. And this is sort of a combination of Deepak Chopra and Charles Fillmore that I'm giving you right now, which is this idea of consciousness as awareness, as knowing, and as perception. So there's a bit of a combination of sort of modern psychology in there. It's perception, it's what you perceive, it's what you can observe. But in the spiritual context, when we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about that knowingness. Have you ever just known something? Everything around you might be telling you the exact opposite, and yet you know something. And so in Unity, what we understand is that all experience is occurring in consciousness, and that all experience is actually known in consciousness, and that all experience is made out of consciousness, and all experiences are a form of consciousness. So we will often compare this idea of oneness with consciousness. It is something that is pervasive. It is everywhere present. So there is the consciousness that in Unity, we call it the human race consciousness, collective consciousness, group think. And then there is the consciousness that we actually have some dominion over, some way of sort of growing our consciousness. So I kept coming back to our vision statement this week over and over and over again, a world spiritually awakened and transformed through realizing our divine potential. And we're talking about consciousness here. Because when we talk about consciousness in Unity, we're talking about God consciousness. We're talking about oneness. We're talking about the understanding that is bigger than just our human understanding. And don't get me wrong, I love my human understanding. It's valuable. But again, it's how do we hold that human understanding and the divine awareness simultaneously. And that's really, I believe, the spiritual practice. Jesus did this. Jesus didn't sit on a cushion. Jesus just didn't sit there experiencing oneness and oming away or shmaiing away, right? Jesus got up and he interacted and he walked with people and he impacted people and he got angry and he had doubts. This is what we're all being invited to step into, is that journey to reveal our Christ consciousness. So how awake are you really? And there's no judgment here, don't get me wrong. If you need to put your head in the sand because it is too much, you go ahead and do that. Take care of yourself. And we certainly don't want to stick our heads in the sand all the time. We can use times to recuperate ourselves, but we want to keep coming back into the world. And then the question, how do we grow our consciousness? What does that mean? How does that happen? And I'm going to come back to this idea that it's by realizing our divine potential. We are being invited again and again and again to realize the truth of who we are, and not just the truth of who we are, but the truth of who all of us are. And that includes those ice people. Oh, they are part of oneness. That includes the people who are so-called, illegals, all the language that's being thrown around right now. We are being invited to understand the divinity that we are and the divinity that everyone is. And it's challenging in a polarized world. But that's the work. We're here because that's our work. So I shared last week these steps that we're being invited to step into. Self-awareness. So if we want to grow our consciousness intentionally, we need to identify areas of growth. We need to look at the past patterns. We need to look at the challenges that anybody in here keeps seeing the same stuff coming up over and over and over again. It's an opportunity to become aware of something. And then to step into a vision of what's possible. Who are you called to be? What are the qualities that would support you right now that you can cultivate? And we're not focused on an outcome, right? We're not trying to solve a problem. How do you solve a problem like Maria, right? We're not trying to do that. We are standing in a place where we're cultivating the qualities that will enable us to stand where we are right now. And then we have to listen for that inner resistance, because it's going to come up. We're going to hear that little voice saying, oh no, not you, honey. You can't do that. That's too big for you. Oh no. That's not your fight. Is there anything that is anybody else's? We're all in this together. Whatever this is, we're all in it together. And then what are the spiritual practices that we're going to bring to it? What are we going to do to heal? So a big part of realizing our divine potential is being willing to heal. And unity is a healing teaching first and foremost. And what we understand now is that we're not talking about just healing the body like Myrtle did as she healed herself of tuberculosis. We're talking about healing the wounds of our beingness that live in us and are mirrored out there in the world. So whatever it is that you see out there that you feel is broken, that is also a part of you. And this is the work that we're being invited to do. So last week we talked about affirmations and negations, right? Which are very powerful tools to begin to shift our consciousness. That we can say yes to some things, our spiritual capacity, and we can say no to the patterns that we don't want to give power anymore, that we don't want to have controlling us. How many people in here have felt that moment where fear takes over and it is making all the decisions for you, right? What a negation does is say, I see you, fear. I'm not ignoring you, but I'm not going to give you the power to hijack my life, my experience. I'm going to choose something else in this moment. So we take affirmations and negations, and if we move forward with them, we move into what Unity, I believe, New Thought's greatest gift to the world is affirmative prayer. You've heard me say this a lot, right? And affirmative prayer gives us a way to align with our true nature. And then the thing that's great about affirmative prayer is that it's not just about aligning and feeling really good. And, oh, this was lovely. And then we go outside and we feel like we got smacked upside the head by the world again. It gives us a way to consciously live from our divinity. Concrete ways that we get to show up as our divine self. And so I like to think of it as affirmative prayer is really great from moving us from problem consciousness to God consciousness, right? From our human experience to a greater understanding. So it's like we're looking for the spiritual antidote for whatever that human condition is. We want to inoculate ourselves. So we place our attention upon the spiritual antidote so that we get to shift. We get to shift something within us. And where we place our attention grows in consciousness. So if all of our attention is on our problems, if all of our attention is on what we don't have, if all of our attention is on what is wrong in the world, guess what? That just is growing in our consciousness. So what if instead we anchored qualities that we know we are and we know other people are? What if we anchor wisdom and strength and love and joy and power and life and releasing? Ooh, do we need to do a lot of releasing? So I have done many talks on affirmative prayer, right? So I'm just going to focus really quickly on what I call the heart of affirmative prayer, which is three things. God is, I am, therefore I can. Everybody say that.
God is, I am, therefore I can.
All right, so we identify a spiritual quality that God is. Strength, love, joy, peace, wisdom. We know we're not separate from it. So that means I am strength, love, peace, joy, wisdom. And if that's true, what can I do in time and in space? What can I do to be the living presence of joy, love, strength? Right? Because as we realize our divine nature, that allows us to live from an expanded consciousness. So here's some examples of what that can look like, right? If God is wisdom, that means I am wisdom, and therefore I can choose wisely and well. I can discern clearly because I have that capacity. If God is strength and I am strength, that means I have the ability to be strong and steadfast, to have courage and tenacity. Can you feel this? Right? Can you feel how it goes from being this sort of abstract idea to something you can actually be and do and activate? If God is love and I am love, I can open my heart freely, speak compassionately. Even when I'm angry, even when I'm frustrated, I can still be love. If God is joy and I am joy, this one I need right now. And next week we're going to talk about joy, living a joyful life, right? I can be lighthearted and have fun. If God is power and I am power, I can be powerful. I can have self-mastery, because that's what unity means by power, self-mastery. And I can speak truth and I can change the world. Can you feel how we take something that sort of lives up here or even here, and we make it something that we can actually embody in time and in space. This is how we shift our consciousness. And because there's only one consciousness, as I shift my consciousness, guess what? I am shifting consciousness, period, end of story. And sometimes it can really feel like a heavy lift, and that's because the human race consciousness is struggling. And I am being called to anchor something that creates a place of possibility for others to be able to breathe into and to feel into. I often think about Emma Curtis Hopkins and Myrtle and Charles and those early founders of New Thought. They were carving something in consciousness that I am a recipient of. I'm standing on all the work they did to shift something for everyone, and now I get to move it to the next level. That's what we're here to be and do. To keep expansion is happening, whether, what do I say, get on board or get dragged. Expansion is happening, always happening. We are being invited to grow always. So Myrtle said it this way, and this is our method of prayer: acknowledging our oneness with God, claiming the ability that this gives, and expecting to have the things needed and conducive to spiritual progress. Notice how she doesn't say, expect to have the things you asked for show up for you. She says, expect the things needed and conducive to spiritual progress, to your tapping in to the spiritual truth of who you are. So if you want to know more about the prayer process, I wrote a whole book on it with Linda Martello-Whitsitt, who was the vice president in charge of Silent Unity for many, many years. We are doing an online class in March, so you might want to save the date if you're interested in exploring that more. Christine in the bookstore has ordered some of my books. If you don't have it already, if you want to get one, make sure you touch base with her. And then if you've never been to the Village, come. So Linda and I are going to be doing an immersive prayer retreat at Unity Village, July 9th through the 13th. And you can find out more information about that online as well. So if the idea of dancing with this prayer process is something that really speaks to you, there are ways you can grow your capacity, right? There are ways that you can develop that. Okay. So affirmative prayer provides us with a tool to align with our divine identity rather than our human experience. Can you feel that, right? We're moving from problem consciousness to God consciousness. And as we awaken to the truth of who we truly are, that's the growth in consciousness. We started this talk with, how do we grow consciousness? I honestly don't know a better path than through the process of affirmative prayer, right? To grow yourself in consciousness. Now, I'm going to offer this just so that you might have a container for yourself, because we talk about consciousness and we talk about growing consciousness. And so Unity has a model, New Thought has a model, where we talk about the 4 stages of evolving consciousness. These are not linear. They nest inside each other. But what we have are victim consciousness, where we think everything is happening to me. Anybody in here ever feel like that? We have what we call victor or manifestor consciousness, which is when we think everything happens by me. I made that happen. I'm going to do it, right? And then we have channel consciousness, or sometimes called vessel consciousness, where things happen through me. So when you hear people say, I don't know, I got this download, right, that I should X, Y, or Z, right? That's an example of channel consciousness. Can you feel that? Like something happening through me. And then we have Christ Buddha consciousness, which we would say as me. And the victim and the victor are fear-based, they're problem-based. They're trying to solve a problem. And as we move into channel and Christ consciousness, we are more faith-based. We are more vision and God consciousness. So in this victim to me, right, we might hear like the spiritual tools that people use in victim consciousness might be petitionary prayer. God, help me, please. Whatever you want, I'll do. Just make this go away. Anybody here ever done that? Or the why me on the bathroom floor? That was me at one point in time. We might have a lot of negative self-talk, right? All we hear and repeat and over and over and over and over again is all this negative self-talk. You're not, of course they did that to you because you are horrible. You're such an idiot. Why did you do that? I can't believe how stupid you were, right? You deserved that, whatever that is. And then we blame other people. It wasn't my fault, the opposite, right? It wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with this. You know, if they hadn't done this, I wouldn't feel so bad about myself. If only they would change, then I could be happy. So there's an appearance of no control. External forces are in control. So when we're in victim consciousness, because remember, these are all happening simultaneously. You've all experienced this, right? Sometimes you're feeling on top of the world, and then somebody says something, and like all of a sudden you're like, right back into victim consciousness. Like, what? What do you mean? Why are you doing that to me? So we move through all of these throughout our day. So when we find ourselves in victim consciousness, it's like, okay, I'm going to give up the shame. I'm going to give up the blame. Right? And we're going to move into some spiritual practices that will help us with feeling more as if we have some empowerment. And that would be victor consciousness, right? Where things happen by me. And so this is where we start to begin to use affirmative prayer. This is where affirmations and visualizing things and creating vision boards. How many people in here do the vision boards? Right? That's about manifestor consciousness. I want to create this, and I'm going to do it. Right? It's very American, by the way. Very American, this victor by me, pull yourself up, I'm the one who does it all. And we're so terrified of becoming a victim again that we can be very rigid, very fixed in our perspectives. And that is when we find ourselves feeling like that, when we find ourselves feeling like, and sometimes it's exhausting, right? Okay, I gotta do this. I'm the one who has to, I'm the only one who can. We need to take a breath and be like, okay, it's time to give up control. It's time to give up my sense of power, because my sense of power is not rooted in my spiritualness. My sense of power is rooted in my ego. And that can move us into channel, where things are happening through me. So we feel like we're a vessel for spirit. Not I, but God that does the work, yes? The practices that we get to step in here are visioning. Meditation is big when people are in channeling. When people are in this consciousness, they like to spend a lot of time meditating, right? Mindset of openness, a mindset of receptivity. We're very teachable at this time, right? We're very teachable. So we might find ourselves grabbing at all kinds of ideas because like we're teachable, we're excited, we're adventurous, we're curious. We might have beginner's mind in this space. And so this time is an opportunity to give up any sense of separation. Because when we think we're a channel, we think we're a channel for something that isn't us. We are a vehicle for something that isn't me. And what we're being invited into is to give up even that to give up even that sense that there's any kind of separation happening. And that would bring us into, so meditation, I wanted to talk about these two things this week, right? Meditation, how I understand this, is meditation is the receptive experience of the divine. It's all about surrender, quieting, stilling, being. And affirmative prayer is the activated experience of the divine. It's empowerment. And we want both. We want to meditate and surrender, and we want to step into affirmative prayer and activate the divinity that we are. And it's this dance that we get to be in. And as we're doing this dance, we might notice we lean a little bit too much into affirmative prayer and the activation of things, and we become very materialistic focused. Or we might lean too much into the receptive experience of the divine, and we're not actually doing something in time and in space. So there's a dance in there. And that dance brings us to the Christ consciousness. When we find that sweet spot, right? Even anybody just experience it for a moment, right? That moment of, oh. And then, you slip into another stage of consciousness, at least I do. So it's the experience of the divine mind, of being one, right? And it's the opportunity to just continue experiencing and being limitless consciousness, right? So what I thought for this week, what the practices could be is that just notice throughout your day where you're orienting in consciousness. Are you in victim consciousness? Are you in manifestor consciousness? Are you in channel? Are you in Christ consciousness? Where, and then knowing what will help you. If you're in victim consciousness, reach for an affirmation. If you're in manifestor consciousness, catch the vision of the God idea rather than your idea. If you're in channel consciousness, just be with the capacity to obliterate any sense of separation and to know the I am that you actually are. But we want to bring consciousness to how it is that we're moving through our day. We're not bringing judgment. Does everybody hear me? There is nothing wrong with being in victim consciousness. Everybody say it. Okay, now really say it. Really say it. It's part of our human experience. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. Don't make it wrong. Don't make it bad. Just acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. Right? And just be willing to keep looking to how we can expand and grow in our consciousness. Sometimes we got to be focused on the material. Is it okay to be focused on the material? Absolutely, right? We need to feed, clothe, we need material stuff. So, there is no judgment for any of these, because can you see the little nesting thing I did, right? They live in you all the time. It's not like linear, you move from one to the other. They're all active and available to you in any given moment. So when you're in victim, just know Christ consciousness is available to you. And when you're in Christ consciousness, bring that compassionate awareness and know that victim consciousness is always going to be available to you too. And then identify those areas of growth, right? Bring that self-awareness and that discernment and that vision and meditation, right? Step into a place where you're actually beginning to listen to that inner wisdom that will tell you exactly where you get to place your attention right now. And then discover your own divinity. Use those spiritual principles. Practice affirmations. Use negations. I have to say the most underused spiritual tool in New Thought is negations. You use them. Claim that those things that are active as your life have no more power over you. Step into that place. Emma Curtis Hopkins would call it the emphatic no. No. And then practice affirmative prayer. Practice meditation, right? So that you are consciously engaging with your own personal journey of growth and expansion. That's what it means to live a conscious life. We're never done. We are always looking. We are always exploring. We're always questioning. We're always saying what's next. I'm constantly amazed on social media. You'll see somebody post something, and they mean it with the best of intentions, but they have such blinders that they don't understand how whatever they posted, the impact of how that lands. And those are places that in some ways we want to get excited about. Like, oh, somebody's showing me the door that I didn't even know existed. Somebody's showing me a blind spot. I get to grow into that. But we have to be willing to step into this process of saying yes, yes, yes to this and no to that, right? Remember, everything you say yes to is the equivalent of an unlimited number of no's, right? Everything you say yes to means you're saying no to other things. We don't like that. That makes us very uncomfortable. We want to keep all our options open. But we need to stand in what you can always change your mind, right? You can always change your mind. So let's take this into a time of meditation. Let's take this into a space where we're willing to allow ourselves to just listen. Where am I being invited to grow? Where am I being invited to understand my true nature and my true name? Where am I being invited to meet myself in healing those wounds of otherness and separation? Where is it within ourselves that we are being invited to turn the light of our divinity on, to illuminate something that may have served us, it may never have served us, but maybe it did serve us. But at this moment, we are saying yes to understanding our true potential. What is the vision that you are called to be? What are you being invited to pay attention to? Let's just breathe into that for a minute or so as we rest here listening in the silence. And as we listen to where it is we are being invited to pay attention, to grow, to step out of our comfort zone, just open to the spiritual gifts and capacities that you already own. What can you bring? What can you cultivate? What is yours to do to activate in time and in space with conscious choice? Maybe you need to release a lot of old ideas. Maybe you need to share your creativity and your joy. Maybe you need to share your voice, to speak truth, to be the place, the space where the true nature of love and light and peace and compassion come together in a way that is uniquely you. And just breathing into this and knowing God is, I am, and therefore I can expand my understanding. I can realize my divine potential. I can be a place of healing for the world. Gratitude for this awareness and so much more. I invite you to know with me that it is done by saying, and so it is. Amen. Ashe. So the affirmation today, I'll say it first. God is, I am, therefore I can awaken to my divine nature and expand in consciousness. Can we know this together? God is, I am, therefore I can awaken to my divine nature and expand in consciousness. And so it is. Amen.